Imagine a capital city, a beacon of power and culture, suddenly silenced. That was Preslav on January 23, 971. For decades, this fortified city in the Eastern Balkans was the glorious heart of the First Bulgarian Empire. Think of it as the great rival to Constantinople, a center of Slavic learning, art, and royal authority. Its palaces gleamed, its churches reached for the heavens, and its schools nurtured a vibrant Christian culture. But on this day, an eerie quiet fell over its scarred walls. The city was no longer Bulgarian. It was under the control of a fierce new power from the north. So, who were these invaders? They were the warriors of the Kievan Rus, a formidable force led by a man who was more myth than monarch, Prince Sviatoslav I. Sviatoslav wasn't your typical king. He scorned palaces and lavish feasts. His throne was a saddle, his bedroom the hard ground, and his dining hall was wherever his army camped for the night. He was a whirlwind of a man, known for his lightning-fast campaigns and relentless ferocity. He lived and breathed war, moving with his army not as a distant commander, but as one of the pack. He was a constant, mobile threat, a human storm gathering on the horizon. Now, you might be wondering, how did a prince from the Kievan Rus end up so deep in the Balkans, conquering the Bulgarian capital? Well, the story is a classic tale of political backstabbing. The mighty Byzantine Empire, always looking for an edge over its neighbors, had a problem. The Bulgarian Empire was a thorn in its side, a powerful rival right on its doorstep. So, the Byzantine emperor came up with a clever, or, so he thought, plan. Why not invite Sviatoslav and his Rus warriors to attack Bulgaria from the north, use one enemy to weaken another? It was a classic geopolitical gambit, and at first, the plan worked beautifully. Sviatoslav swept into Bulgaria, shattering its defenses. The Byzantines in Constantinople must have been rubbing their hands with glee. But here's where the plan went spectacularly wrong. Sviatoslav wasn't just a hired sword. After defeating the Bulgarians, he was supposed to take his payment and go home. But Sviatoslav looked around the rich lands of the Balkans and thought, this is nice, I think I'll stay. He had no intention of being a pawn in Byzantium's game. He was playing his own game, for his own empire. He saw the strategic value of the region, the access to trade routes, the proximity to the wealthy heart of the Byzantine Empire itself. The hired help had decided to become the new owner. And so, by January 23, 971, the situation had escalated dramatically. After a period of intense and brutal fighting, Preslav, the great capital, finally fell. The city that had symbolized Bulgarian independence and cultural pride was now an occupied territory. The Bulgarian ruler, Tsar Boris II, was captured. Imagine the shock, the despair. The leader of the nation was a prisoner in his own fallen capital. For Bulgaria, this was a national catastrophe, a moment of profound crisis. Preslav wasn't just a collection of buildings, it was the soul of the empire. Its fall sent a shockwave of fear and uncertainty across the land. Back in Constantinople, the mood shifted from self-congratulation to sheer panic. The Byzantines had unleashed a force they couldn't control. The Rus army wasn't just a temporary problem anymore. They were an occupying power sitting right in the heart of the Balkans, dangerously close to Constantinople itself. Sviatoslav, their former ally, was now their most immediate and dangerous enemy. The Emperor, John I Aximisks, a brilliant general in his own right, knew he had to act, and act fast. The failed diplomatic maneuver had to be corrected with military force. The stage was set for an epic confrontation. The Byzantine war machine, one of the most sophisticated and professional armies of the medieval world, was mobilized. Within months of Preslav's fall, Byzantine legions would march north. Their mission, to drive Sviatoslav out of the Balkans and reclaim the region for the empire. What followed was a brutal, high-stakes war between two of the era's greatest military powers. Tzimisk's and Sviatoslav, two warrior leaders, would clash in a campaign that would decide the fate of southeastern Europe. Ultimately, the Byzantines would prove victorious. Their superior siege tactics, naval power, and logistical depth ground down Sviatoslav's forces. The Rus were defeated, and Sviatoslav was forced to retreat, his Balkan dream in tatters. Preslav was liberated by the Byzantines, but it was not returned to the Bulgarians. Instead, it became a Byzantine provincial city. The Bulgarian Tsar Boris II was taken to Constantinople not as a restored king, but as a captive. In a humiliating public ceremony, he was stripped of his imperial regalia, his crown, his purple boots, his scepter. This act symbolically declared the end of the First Bulgarian Empire. Although Bulgarian resistance would continue in the west for several more decades, the fall of Preslav marked the beginning of the end. But on that specific day, January 23, 971, none of this was certain. The future was a chaotic swirl of possibilities. All that was clear was that the old order was crumbling. The fall of Preslav was a stark lesson in medieval realpolitik. It showed how quickly alliances could turn into enmities, how a capital city's walls were no match for a determined army, and how power in this era was always in motion. Borders drawn by centuries of tradition could be erased in a single campaign by armies on the move. The story of Preslav's fall is a powerful reminder that history is not a neat and tidy progression. It's a messy, often brutal story of ambition, betrayal, and survival. It's a story where a single event, on a single day, can change the course of empires. It shows that in the high-stakes game of medieval politics, an ally was only an ally for as long as your interests aligned. The moment that advantage shifted, so did loyalty. January 23, 971, a capital lost, a region thrown into chaos, and a brutal lesson learned by all: trust no one. Tomorrow, we'll explore another date, another pivotal moment from our deep and dramatic past. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, consider liking this video and subscribing for more journeys into history.